Hello, I'm Julie Swenson, Managing Director of Forward Theater Company in Madison, Wisconsin.
And I'm Mike Fisher, a Milwaukee-based theater writer and dramaturg.
I'm Jen Uphoff-Gray, founder and artistic director of Forward Theater Company, and this is Theater Forward, a twice-monthly conversation about theater from a local, regional, and national perspective. From Madison to Manhattan, we're excited to share insights into our own company while exploring issues surrounding theater in the Midwest and around the country. Welcome to episode 95 of Theater Forward.
Oh, good to be here.
For this episode, it is that time of year again. We're going to talk about the process of selecting the plays for our upcoming 2023-2024 season. And we hope that this conversation provides some context for the decisions being made by companies all over the country, as we are definitely hitting peak announcement season in American theater. So that's our plan for this conversation, friends. And we were thinking that it might be productive to talk about our season kind of in the order in which we locked in the plays. And just for some context, we do a 4-show main stage season. We also have some new work festivals. We're not going to talk about those so much today, but we do 4 shows. We are specifically drawing from the best of contemporary theater. We don't do classics. But we beat the bushes for exciting things happening. And our seasons tend to, we'll sort of find one thing and we go get the rights and we know we lock that in. And then maybe we find a second and then we start really crafting to achieve a good sense of balance. So Julie, I thought maybe you could start us off talking about the play that we locked in quite a long time ago to be what will be in the second slot of our season, November of this year.
Yeah, we grabbed this one really quickly. It is Clyde's by Pulitzer Prize winning playwright Lynn Nottage. It was and is the most produced play in America. And we wanted to be the Wisconsin premiere of the show. Takes place in a truck stop diner, formerly incarcerated people being sort of tormented by the main character, Clyde. And what interests me, and I know our perspectives are so different here, and that's the fun of this podcast, but the fact that we're going to have a working diner where people get to make sandwiches on a regular basis. We're so lucky to have Metcalf's, which is a local grocery store here in Madison, is going to be providing all of those sandwich fixings. But the idea that you'll be able to smell the panini being made, and and our cast will need to learn how to chop. There will be a particular rehearsal period. Really interests me. It is an incredible show about people surviving in this world when a lot of things when life is against them, and the hopefulness of that. And so excited to be doing this show along with many, many other people in the country.
I mean, it was so clear when all I knew about this script was a 2-sentence description when it was being developed, I believe, at the Guthrie in 2019, I think, 2018, 2019. Right, yeah. And back when it was called Floyd's. But all we knew about it was by Lynn Nottage, one of the most brilliant playwrights in America, whose work we have sadly not yet been able to do at our theater. That it was a comedy, that it had food being prepared on stage, and that it also had this underlying really big, important context of looking at what life is like in our communities for the population of the formerly incarcerated. And so it was like all the boxes being checked of what seems like a great forward theater show. And we started trying to get our hands on a script way back when it was still being workshopped at the Guthrie. But then it's gone down this lovely pathway of being developed, and then coming to Broadway, having this successful run there, and then starting to be licensed out to LORT theaters around the country. And so it's so exciting that we were now able to get our hands on a license to do it for our audience. And I'm so excited for the entertaining aspects of it. Like you said, Julie, this is an engaging thing to watch on a stage. But then to be able to have that broaden out into conversations outside the theater about our community. And yeah, I get off on that stuff.
Right. It feeds into exactly what we want to do, which is theater that also talks to the community. And there are so many ways that we're going to be outreaching to different organizations and working with different organizations around this play. And that's exciting as well.
But it's also very much about theater. I mean, one of the themes I love in this play, which, I mean, I don't want to lose sight by getting all heady here in a second about how damn funny this play is, it is, Jen's right, it's super entertaining. But it is about why we make art and what kind of art we're going to make. I mean, these aren't just normal panini sandwiches, folks. You are going to be, if you don't leave the theater hungry after watching this play, there is something seriously wrong with you. I mean, it's just going to lay it out there like that. And in terms of, do these formerly incarcerated folks, do people who are marginalized in our society get a right to talk about and say what art is and make it? And how do we respond to that? And what is the relationship between that kind of populist, popular art and the art that the rest of us are making in our sort of highfalutin equity theaters? That is a huge, important way in which what Julie's talking about in terms of the discussion between theater and a community is happening in this play. And it's Lynn Nottage to a T, right? Who's always sort of thinking about, this is the person who took her play Sweat, to the factory town of Reading, which is where it was set, and then used that to launch a tour of the whole country and of working class communities in which that play could be performed as a way of trying to sort of bridge that gap between high art and everyday life. So it's just going to be cool on so many levels.
Yeah, so that was the first one. We locked that in as soon as we could. We've known it's been coming for a little while. So yay. So we knew we had November set. And then, we swirled around so many different titles as we, tried to see what Lego bricks would fit together, what patchwork blocks looked good next to each other. I don't know what the metaphor. Yeah, so many different metaphors. The second title to drop in, Mike, why don't you talk about that one? And that's going to be in our third slot, our sort of January, February slot of next season.
Well, this is an adaptation by Brit playmaking genius Emma Rice of a book called The Flying Lovers of Vitebsk. And it is just, talk about swirling, Jen. This is a beautiful, it's the love story of Mark and Bella Chagall. But it's presented in a way which just breaks every darn barrier in terms of what theater is supposed to be. It's a dance piece. It's a music piece. It's such a movement piece. And it's using those ways of thinking about how we present theater to talk about, expanding our idea of what love can be. It is a play that will make you feel so good coming in the middle of winter. It'll make you feel so good and so warm. And it is not just sort of beautiful, but it is stylistically innovative in the ways that some of the best theater being made right now is. Emma Rice, we've talked about her before. She did The Wuthering Heights, which is touring the country right now to raves, an adaptation of that played at Chicago Shakespeare last year. She had a number of things online during the pandemic. She used to be the director of Shakespeare's Globe. She was way too innovative for them. Like Mark, she has with Mark Rylance the distinction of being somebody that was kind of booted out because she wanted to do more than they wanted her to do. She is going to really make this production pop, as will our actual production, which is going to feature as Mark and Bella Chagall, Marcus Trzynski and Emily Glick, who are two of Wisconsin's rightly beloved performers who are perfect for these two parts. I just can't wait to see what this is going to look like on our stage.
And I will toss in just mentioning that. So Emma Rice is the director who sort of collaborated to bring the original production, but Daniel Jamieson is the playwright. Want to make sure to get his name in there. Not that I'm, have any problem with leading with the directors personally, as one. But yeah, they created something so special that is this sort of conceptual piece, as well as this lovely and sort of spare and lyrical poetic script. But it is a piece that I think will be as much about the visual as the spoken, with music and dance and all of that.
There's a lot of singing in this. Mm-hmm. So could it be considered a quasi musical, maybe our second, maybe not quite, but there is a lot of music in here, and it is a visual feast.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part for me.
Yeah, and this one has, it debuted in England. Well, actually, I think there might have been a workshop somewhere on the West Coast, but it has had almost no life yet in the United States. I hope that that is something we'll see change. And Mike, this came to my attention thanks to you during the first year of lockdown, when you were doing those wonderful Mike's Picks newsletters for Forward, where you were kind of scanning what was going to be available in terms of streaming theater from around the world and making recommendations. And the beautiful production that Emma Rice directed had been filmed and was streamed in the first half or so of 2020. And I got a digital ticket for it on your recommendation, and I just thought it was so gorgeous. And it's a little bit different for us, but not totally out of the range of what we do. Right. I'm excited to push those boundaries in some fun ways. Great. So then we had that show selected, and great. The middle of the season, slots 2 and 3 were set, and we were really working hard to figure out what the other 2 were. And there were a lot of factors that we were working with. I mean, one was stylistic balance, making sure, do we have humor, heart, drama, all of those different aspects of that you can find when you go to the theater emotionally for an audience. Do we have a nice balance of different kinds of visual styles, balance in terms of the kinds of characters and stories being told on stage. We're also, let's be real, looking at finances. It's, things are very, very, very expensive these days compared to the way they were a few years ago. Costs are through the roof. Audience numbers are rebuilding nicely, at least for us this season. We're seeing, strong and growing single ticket sales, but we're starting with a deficit on our subscription numbers, like most companies. So we are rebuilding there. Government money is basically totally gone. So making sure that we pick shows that would give a sumptuous and filling experience to our audience, but Clyde's is a very expensive show.
Right.
Flying Lovers has its, we've got onstage musicians. It's a very visual show. So neither one of those is inexpensive, right? So we knew we weren't looking at, finding a 7-person play, a 10-person play for those other slots. So that was part of it. Also, just really keeping in mind, as we moved closer and closer to locking our season, we were getting further and further into the current season and really learning from our audience, what they were responding to, what they were needing in this time, and recognizing that people are, we are so blessed to have this curious and questioning and expansive, open audience that we have here in Madison. Like we get to do a lot of fun, weird plays. But at the same time, people have been through a lot, and it's been really clear, like they don't want to see a season full of plays that are incredibly hard, emotionally hard. Complex, yes. Challenge you to think, yes. Don't all have to be, rip-roaring comedies, yes. But that we don't want to be putting them through an emotional ringer right now. Everyone feels like they've been through one nonstop for the last few years. So all of those factors in mind. So that really, we were kind of looking and what can we slot in around these other 2 plays that kind of tick those boxes. And the next thing that locked in for us, it's a little embarrassing to me that I hadn't settled on this earlier than we did. And that is the play that's going to close our season next spring, What the Constitution Means to Me by Heidi Schreck. And the reason I'm embarrassed that we didn't have it earlier in our planning is that before it even went to Broadway in 2019, we had read that script and said, oh gosh, this would be perfect for Forward. We would love to do this. I actually saw it in New York because the sort of lingering question at that point in 2019 was, does this play work if it's not the playwright starring in it herself? And I went I was in New York. I saw it, and I remember, texting you, Julie, going,
Yep.
You put someone like Colleen Madden in this role, and we are good to go. So we went after the rights very diligently. But then they wound up doing a national tour. They planned a national tour, and the rights weren't available. And actually, the national tour was scheduled to come through Madison to the Overture Center for the Arts, where we perform. They very rarely schedule tours of non-musical plays, but there you go. It's coming here. And we kind of just took it off our list because great, our audience had a chance to see it. But I had a sudden moment of realization, wait a second, it did come here for 2 performances. And they were in the peak of one of the COVID surges. And actually very few people went to see it while it was here. And so there's this moment of going, wait a minute, we should absolutely do this. It's the rare play that's not at least a Wisconsin premiere for us, but my gosh, our audience deserves to see this play. They deserve to see it with Colleen. With the political events in our country over the last year or so, it is more urgent than ever. And I'm just so excited to tell it. It's really a 3-person play, as much as it's got this sort of vibe of being a one-hander, but there are 2 other performers who will be in it. But in the spring of a presidential election year, dealing with what it deals with, but knowing that it deals with these big issues about the legal protections or lack thereof in our country for women, for marginalized people, for those who have the capacity to get pregnant, for those who are vulnerable to sexual violence, all of that. It wrestles with those incredibly weighty and sometimes rage-filled issues, and it does it with so much heart and, again, so much humor. I can't wait.
It's one of the few shows. I mean, we knew we wanted to do it, and I remember you, Jen. It was like a lightning bulb went off. It illuminated the office when you went, hold on, you know what? What the Constitution means to me. And we all went, yes. You don't need, it stands on its own. It's a beautiful play. But for us to have Colleen Madden in that role, it just made such sense. And we don't pick a play that, must have this actor. And that's not what happened. But boy, we grabbed her as quickly as we thought that this piece would be a good idea for forward, and for all that you said in terms of when it's placed, which is a real consideration when you put a season together, that play needed to be done in April of 2024. And then with Colleen is especially exciting.
Yeah, I've got to say, I was a little, I guess I shared Jen's skepticism, maybe was even a bit more skeptical, even after seeing it in New York, that anybody besides Heidi Schreck could do this play. Until I thought about Colleen Madden, right? I mean, it's just, whatever. I've probably spilled more ink on her than just about any actor in Wisconsin during the years when I covered Wisconsin theater. She is tremendous. She's also, in a way, which is not taking away at all from the other, also very, very great actors that we have in this state. There's something about her person which just feeds into this role. The combination of just, almost barely in control at some moments, the rage that Jen is talking about that is in this script, but incredible heart and warmth as well. And you need all of those to capture this character. I mean, in some ways, even though Colleen will only be playing one person, she's playing as many different characters as she played in Seringatry, which remains for most of us one of her true tour de forces in her distinguished Wisconsin theater career, because there are so many sides to the Heidi Schreck that needs to be embodied through this role. I can't wait to see what she does with that.
Yeah. So it's wild to me that for this upcoming season, the last play that we settled on is the one that's going to open the season. It just the way things wanted to flow, it was clear that those other 3 scripts, the ones we sort of identified first, belonged in the slots in which they are being programmed, and figuring out what we could open the season with. And it was a fairly late arrival of a script that is pretty new, has had now a couple productions, and I think will get done quite a bit over the next few years. But I had a member of our advisory company sent me a script that they knew a friend was working on in the Chicago area called The Garbologists by Lindsay Joelle. And I, remembered in the season announcement, this time a year ago, reading the little one-liner about it, going, that sounds interesting. And then it kind of fell off my radar, as things sometimes do. But we got our hands on that script. And as soon as I read it, for me at least, it just felt like it dropped in. Like, whatever our analogy is of building the season, the quilts, the Legos, what have you, it felt like, great, we've got 3/4 of it. And now there's a very specific sized space that needs to be filled. And the minute I read this play, I thought, well, gosh, here's the script that actually fits perfectly. We don't have to wedge it in. Two-hander, although one with really dynamic production design possibilities. So I think it will feel like a large and expansive production. And the fact that it has only 2 actors in the cast in a way allows us to free up the budget that's needed to pay for the production needs of it. But about 2 characters who, sort of a buddy comedy in a way, get to know each other while working as a team in a garbage truck as New York City Sanitation Department employees. And, one character is a white guy from Staten Island who's been doing this job for a long time, seasoned employee. And the other is a Black woman, Ivy League educated, who we see her first day on the job. And in a way, part of the play is sort of, what is the mystery of why is this person from this background taking this job? Because it seems surprising when you first meet her. I love that it's funny. I love that it gives us some great things to look at. I love there's some real grief and emotional growth that plays out in the plot. But I also think there's something when I read it that feels more than really any of the other plays in our season to be meeting our audience where they are right now, in that we are so in our own worlds in this country right now. And certainly in our community, we see that as well. People are so polarized. We talk to and listen to the people who are like us. And there are some very real reasons for that. I'm certainly not a let's kumbaya, all come together, regardless of everybody's beliefs. But there is something intrinsically about a democracy and a society that requires us to be open to the prospect of building relationships with people who are very much not like us. And that is what happens in this play. And there's almost a wish fulfillment aspect of it that I find in this story that I think is comforting without being, it's not pablum, it's not a fairy tale. But I do think that there is something beautiful in this story about 2 very different people who think that they have nothing in common and nothing to be gained or learned from each other, who over the course of the story learn from and build a relationship with each other. And I think that is right now so rare and a thing of beauty. And I think I'm hoping people will really respond to that aspect of this and be excited by it. Plus, in our season where so many of these plays are going to really tantalize the senses, just visually and in terms of the soundscape, there's a garbage truck on stage and lots of bags being tossed into the hopper. And I just think that's going to be fun.
While you have this wonderful relationship, they're picking up garbage bags and throwing them in the back of a truck.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. And it's also, Jen, what you described is exactly when I saw it at Northlight. I mean, that was exactly the way the audience around me was responding to the play, with that kind of, wow, you just walked out of there feeling better. It also bookends nicely to your point about conversations. It bookends really nicely with our last play.
Yeah.
Both of those plays are about learning how to talk about difficult things with people who aren't the same as you are. And we'll see that in Constitution as well. And really, I mean, what does the Constitution mean to any of us? It means being able to live in a society where conversations like those that take place in our first play of the season will hopefully happen. So yeah, I mean, amen to that in terms of what this play will hopefully do for us.
Yeah. So that's our season.
And can I say that is our 15th season?
Yeah.
This is our 1-5, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So that's what people will have to look forward to here. The Garbologists, then Clyde's, then the Flying Lovers of Vitebsk, then What the Constitution Means to Me. All very different, but I think all very much the kinds of stories that our audience here expects from us. And it's really, I mean, this is one of my favorite times of year, not just because we're announcing our season, but because I get so excited looking at the season announcements from theaters around the country, both to look for trends, oh, look at that play. Look how many people are doing that play. Ooh, are the rights available for that play now? We should look at that for the next year. Things like that. Or, oh, here's a theater I really respect, and they do a lot of the same kinds of plays we do. They're premiering something. We should look out for that script once it's been mounted, so that we can see if that's something that might fit us well. Like it's just such a percolating time for the field, and I love playing our small part in it, seeing what everyone else is doing, and I really look forward to this conversation every year, where we can sort of share some of how the sausage gets made on our end.
Right.
Well, what I'm looking forward to when we have this conversation about sausage being made and what seasons, what people are picking, when I look forward to this next year, when people will be talking about what we were discussing or what was being discussed in our last podcast, i.e. Artemisia, as we see this being a play that's being done everywhere in the United States. It is a great play. And as this podcast drops, there will be a little bit of time left to come see it. We'll be moving toward close. So if you haven't seen Artemisia yet and you want to see a play that's going to be hot in the future, come see it.
Okay, well, gold star, Mike Fisher, for wrapping that up with a
good
bow.
Commercial. Thank you.
Appreciated. I think we will use that to say that this is all for this episode of Theater Forward, a conversation about theater in Wisconsin, the Midwest, and in America. I'm Jenna Hoff-Gray.
I'm Julie Swenson.
And I'm Mike Fisher. Our podcast is produced, as always, by Scott Hayden, and you can follow us or share your thoughts on Facebook and Twitter at Theater Forward. As always, theater spelled with an E-R.
And if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you might tune in. And be sure to leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
We're so grateful to have you listening, and we will be back soon for another Theater Forward conversation.